The white feathered arrow arced through the morning mist of Sekigahara and struck Tokugawa Ieyasu's helmet with a crack, sharp enough to startle the crows pacing the muddy battlefield. Had its iron tip sunk even a thumb-width deeper, the age of great peace that would cradle Japan for the next 2.5 centuries would never have dawned. Instead, the shaft clattered to the ground, and the course of history rested on a single tremor of fate that only a handful of men even noticed at the time. Before we press deeper into the war-torn valleys and lamplit palace halls of early modern Japan, help this tale travel farther than any arrow. Slice the like button with a samurai's precision. Subscribe to join our growing clan, and tell us in the comments what bold move you would make if the fate of a nation lay in your hands. Your clicks feed the algorithmic kami that carries stories like this across every digital province. Japan in the mid-1500s was not a coherent kingdom, but a checkerboard of fiercely defended domains. Daimyo raised stone castles on every ridge, the emperor reigned without ruling, and the clatter of matchlock muskets, imported by Portuguese merchants, threatened to eclipse the steel hiss of traditional swords. Into that chaos came a boy called Matsudaira Takechiyo, hostage traded at 6, bartered again at 9, and hardened by 14 into a watchful youth who learned to weigh every word and gesture the way seasoned gamblers weigh dice. Takechiyo grew into Tokugawa Ieyasu at the elbow of two towering figures. First came Oda Nobunaga, the ruthless innovator who shredded a cavalry charge with massed gunfire at Nagashino and proved that gunpowder, not lineage, would decide battles to come. After Nobunaga fell to treachery, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, once a sandal-bearer, vaulted from peasant roots to unify most of the archipelago. Ieyasu served both masters with a loyalty measured in opportunistic increments, consolidating his own eastern power base around an obscure fishing hamlet called Edo. Hideyoshi's sudden death in 1598 cracked the fragile unity he'd forged. His heir, the infant Hideyori, nestled behind the ramparts of Osaka Castle, while his widow, the clever Yododono, maneuvered for Toyotomi's supremacy. Ieyasu, by then silver-templed and notoriously patient, accepted a seat on the boy's council of regents, yet quietly courted daimyo who feared Toyotomi dominance. The chessboard of civil war needed only a spark. That spark drifted ashore on a crippled Dutch vessel named Lefte. Among its half-dead crew, an English navigator, William Adams, carried sea charts and stories of Spanish conquest that intrigued Ieyasu more than any Jesuit sermon. Summoned to Sunpu Castle, Adams sketched the far corners of the world on rice paper, taught Western gunnery, and built ocean-going ships for the Tokugawa fleet. Granted 2 swords and the name Anjin Mura, he became the flesh and blood model for James Clavell's John Blackthorne. Proof that sometimes fact outpaces fiction. Autumn mists thickened over Sekigahara in 1600. Ieyasu's eastern coalition marched against Ishida Mitsunari's western army, each side fielding around 75,000 men. Drums thundered, powder dampened in steady rain, and visibility narrowed to a ghostly white arm's length. At midday, the daimyo Kobayakawa Hideaki, long undecided atop Mount Matsuo, thundered downhill in betrayal, swinging the battle's momentum. Mitsunari's lines buckled, corpses piled ankle-deep, and by dusk, Ieyasu surveyed a valley carpeted in defeat, and nearly ended by the arrow that clipped his crest. In 1603, the emperor conferred upon Ieyasu the title Sei Taishogun. Instead of ruling from Kyoto, he transformed marshy Edo into a citadel of stone moats, gridded avenues, and monumental gates. Within a generation, the city's population would eclipse 1 million souls. Its heartbeat synchronized to castle bells that rang out curfews and fire alarms over a skyline of cedar rooftops. Yet, steel alone could not police ambition. The Tokugawa introduced Sankin Kotai, demanding that every lord spend alternate years attending the shogun while leaving wives and heirs as nominal hostages in Edo. The policy drained coffers through lavish travel processions, pumped silver into the capital's economy, and spawned a consumer boom of kimono fashions, kabuki theaters, and the pleasure quarter of Yoshiwara, where the floating world glittered beneath red paper lanterns. Fears of foreign colonization, amplified by tales of Spanish atrocities in the Philippines, spurred the Sakoku Edicts of the 1630s. Japan did not seal itself hermetically. The Dutch were allowed a tiny foothold on Nagasaki's artificial island of Dejima, but departure without permission became a capital crime, and Christian proselytizing met the sword. Even William Adams's descendants found themselves barred from the seas their patriarch had mastered, an irony etched in sea salt tears. War having vanished, the samurai's weapon evolved from battlefield tool to badge of moral authority. Confucian scholars reimagined Bushido as an ideal of frugality, loyalty, and arts as refined as any blade. Swordsmiths hammered ceremonial katana destined more for display than for blood, while farmers, free from marauding armies, experimented with cash crops and haiku leagues. Peace, it turned out, wielded a subtler but no less demanding sword. Yet shadows gathered beneath the cherry blossoms. Rigid class hierarchies ranked merchants, the wealthiest in coin, the lowest in status. Famines in the 1730s and 1780s revealed limits to the shogunate's reach. Smugglers and Rangaku scholars trafficked microscopes, celestial charts, and whispers of European revolutions along moonless coasts. Beneath Edo's orderly grid, discontent simmered like sake, warming over coals. Outside observers mythologized the realm they could barely enter. Jesuit letters alternately praised and condemned Ieyasu. Dutch traders spun tales of disciplined warriors and exquisite steel, and Enlightenment salons in Paris rhapsodized about philosopher samurai who combined Zen restraint with lightning violence. These distant fantasies seeded modern pop culture's enduring fascination with the shogunate era, fertile ground for Clavel's 20th century saga Shogun. By the mid-1800s, the black hulls of Western steamships loomed over Edo Bay. In 1853, Commodore Matthew Perry's cannons forced open Japan's gates, and the Tokugawa house, already creaking, began its collapse. Within 15 years, the Meiji Restoration swept away the samurai stipends, sheared topknots, and replaced processions with iron rails. Yet Tokyo, Edo reborn, retained the imprint of Ieyasu's grand design in its street grid, its festivals, and its instinct for order. Today, pilgrims climb stone steps to Nikko's Toshogu Shrine, where Ieyasu lies enshrined beneath gold-leaved carvings that proclaim a peaceful world. In Kyoto, behind museum glass, the arrow that grazed his helm rests intact, its bamboo shaft snapped where a retainer once broke it free. Visitors read a modest placard, rarely realizing they are inches from an alternate timeline in which civil war might have raged for decades more. When the streaming credits roll on Shogun, remember the dusty footprints behind the drama. A hostage boy who mastered patience, a peasant general whose charisma nearly united a realm, a shipwrecked Englishman who rewrote naval policy, and a single arrow that chose not to pierce. Their intertwined fates forged an era so stable that merchants flourished, artists painted floating worlds, and farmers passed fields to grandchildren who never saw battle. Peace, Tokugawa Ieyasu believed, is the supreme fortress. It must be engineered with taxes and treaties, defended with both steel and ceremony, and, above all, built on the quiet willingness of millions to accept order over chaos. 4 centuries later, his legacy still hums beneath Tokyo's neon. The hollyhock crest may no longer command armies, but it endures in the rhythms of festivals, the etiquette of public life, and the lingering notion that harmony, no matter how meticulously constructed, remains the sharpest blade a nation can wield.